Last but not least, we're going to talk about how to cite forecasting reports. Now, forecasting reports are tricky because the APA manual doesn't actually have an official recommendation. So at FIT Library, we sort of put together our recommendations based on how you would cite similar things like images or websites, and we've made some guidelines.
All right, so let's go over the basic format. You're going to start with the author's last name and first initial. If there is no individual author listed, then you would just put the name of the forecasting service at like Fashion Snoops, for example. Then you're going to put the year, month, and day of publication, the title of the report. Try to include the season in there to help people identify which report you're talking about, the name of the site, and then the URL. And something that's new with the 7th edition of the APA Style Manual is you don't have to put retrieved by those words, and you also don't have to put a specific date, unless it's something like an open educational resource that might change over time. These reports usually don't. If there's new information, they would just put out a new forecasting report. All right, so let's look at where we would get the information for the citation from. Now, as you can see, there's no individual author for this Fashion Snoops forecast report, so I'm just going to put Fashion Snoops. They would be considered the corporate or company or group author. And then the date of publication is actually up here. It's very, very tiny, so you got to kind of look for it. February 11th, 2022. And then the name of the report, I would just kind of copy all this information here. Embrace Trend Story, Memoir, Summer, Spring 23. And then last but not least, the URL. I actually wanted to point out that you can't use this URL here, and I'll show you why. Fashion Snoops does a weird thing where they sometimes don't show the URL for the specific report. This URL actually just goes straight to the homepage for women. So let me show you a little trick. There's two ways that you can get the URL for this specific report. One is to click this share button here. And as you can see, there's a little link here that goes to the specific report. Another option is you can open this report in a new browser tab. And now you'll see that this URL goes to a specific story. And if you want to double check, you would just copy and paste it into a new window or new tab, just to make sure that it goes where you think it's going. And a lot of this is just trial and error, you know, it's just me trying different things to make sure the URL works. If you really can't get the URL to cooperate, then you would just copy fashionsnoops.com, because yeah, that's just the best you could do. Here's an example of how I would cite this report that we just looked at. So you'd have Fashion Snoops, the author, you'd have the date with the year first in parentheses, then you'd have the name of the report in italics, and then there's the URL at the end. Sometimes professors might ask you to do an in-text citation where you would put a citation within the body of the paper or the presentation. Here's an example of how to do that. You've got the title of the report in italics, and then comma, and then the year of publication. That is usually sufficient, but if you want to get very specific and detailed, you might want to provide the paragraph. So most reports, like most websites, you know, don't have page numbers on them, so you can't refer to a specific page the way you would in a book. So what you could do is you could refer to the specific paragraph. You would just count which paragraph it is from the top. This is paragraph 2, so I put para as the abbreviated version of paragraph, para.2. And then that's another way that you could cite. That's also acceptable, that's a little bit more detailed. Next, let's look at a report from WGSN to see how they might be cited in a similar way. So for WGSN, a lot of times they do tend to have individual authors listed for the report. So as you can see here, it's very tiny, but Lucila Saldana is the author of this report. So you would put Saldana L for the author, and then right underneath, also very tiny, is the date of publication. And then a lot of the other information is in similar places, right? Like the name of the report is here at the top. I would just copy all this information and remember to include the season. And then for WGSN, their URLs actually work pretty well. Let me just test it. If you're going to go to a specific report. Yep. All right, so let's see how all that information gets put together for the final citation. So here you have the author's last name, comma, first initial. You have the date of publication in parentheses. You have the title of the report in italics, and you'll notice that I didn't put Fashion Snoops here in the last citation because it was already in the author. When you have the name of the site being the same as the author, you don't have to list it twice. You can just list it as the author and then leave it out here. However, since I have an individual author, I can put the site name here so that we have all the information. and then I have the URL here. So here's the example for how I would do the in-text citation for this story. Author's last name, and you'll notice it's not in italics because the rules are different for using an author's name versus the title of the report. Author's name is not italicized. You have the year, and then for WGSN I actually put a page number because WGSN does provide page numbers. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see here, when I scroll down, page numbers appear up here at the top. And if you're really not sure, you want to be absolutely sure, you can click download to download the report. And you'll see in the PDF version, it's very clear which page you're on. There's even a page number at the bottom. So that's why for this example, for the in-text citation, you are able to put page numbers. All right, and then last but not least, I want to show you a way to cite a specific image within a report. Up till now, we've been citing the entire report. Here's an example of how you might cite an image. Here's an example of how I would do the bibliographic citation. So note that I have the author for the report. I have the name of the report. Very similar to how you would cite the whole report, but the difference is here I have information about the specific image. So in brackets, I state the medium, I state that it's a digital image, and I state the origin or the author is at shape.something. And then I continue with the name of the forecasting service or the site, WGSN Fashion, and then the URL for the entire report because there isn't a specific URL for this image. If there was, I would probably use that. And then for the in-text citation, this is an alternate way that I've seen images cite. I've seen some professors at FIT use this method where instead of counting the number of paragraphs, you would count the number of images starting from the top. So let me just show you how I did that. I just counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And that's how I came up with that this is number 11, image number 11. Now, it's a little bit subjective, right? Like, why is this an image? Why is this not an image? So just do the best you can. Just try to do it in a way that's consistent across all your reports or across all your citations. So let's look at that citation again. You've got the name of the report in italics, the year of publication, and then I put image 11 because I counted from the top and it was the 11th image. All right, thanks for watching.